Good afternoon. Welcome everybody. We're just waiting for some of the performers to just tweak last minute prep, and so I think we're going to get started in about 2-3 minutes here. And so thank you for your patience, and for those who came early to register the process, thank you very much for that. So just wait a couple more minutes and then we'll get started very shortly. Okay, thank you. Everybody, hey, welcome once again. Can't believe this is our 11th year already. I just arrived in Atlanta from Canada last year, so I got to meet some of you guys for the first time. And so this event was new to me, but I was so encouraged and blessed by the event last year. And so it's just wonderful to see you guys again. I know MPAC chapter has also started in Atlanta, and it seems like it's going well. And so congrats to that, and it's wonderful to see. But this event has been in many ways a brainchild of the man that I want to introduce to you guys. Is Reverend Byung-ho Choi, who's the senior pastor of our church, and he really had a heart for this gathering, and is the person who really got this started many years ago. And so it's my privilege to welcome at this time. I think he wants to welcome you guys as well. And so this is Reverend Choi, our senior pastor of Bethany Church.
안녕하세요. How are you in Korean? It's 안녕하세요. Can you repeat me? 안녕하세요. Very good. You have Korean. Do you know who is the founder of adoption? God in the Bible. It is true. God in the Bible. God says, I'm the father to fatherless. I'm the mother to motherless. The Bible continually talking about adoption. I adopt you as my son, as my daughter. So God in the Bible is founder of the adoption. You have done wonderful decision to adopt your precious sons and daughters as your family member. Congratulations. This is 11th year celebration of Adoption Fellowship. I hope you enjoy today and all the program. Let us begin in prayer. Precious Lord, Almighty God, thank you for being a father to fatherless and mother to motherless. Thank you for your unceasing love and care by adopting all of us as your sons and daughters in Christ Jesus. With your grace, you have accepted and adopted us as your children unconditionally. Today is the day of the 11th Korean Adoption Fellowship at the Beda니 Church. We gather together to celebrate your adoption love and also to celebrate Korean Adoption Fellowship. Through this event, we want to practice your adoption spirit into our life in action. The adoptive families are the people who are obeying and practicing your adoption spirit and your love into their life day by day. Thank you for choosing these adoptive families so that they may adopt Korean children as their precious sons and daughters. I pray that these adoptees may find their identity as children of God in Christ and be thankful and respect for their adoptive parents. Also, I pray that these adoptive parents may be proud of themselves, adopted Korean children as their precious sons and daughters. I pray that these adoptive families be filled with your joy and happiness while they are raising their children with your adoption love shown on the cross day by day. I pray that these adoptive children be raised and grown up physically and spiritually in your love and your care, so that they may become successful children shining your love with other people in His world abundantly through this adoption fellowship today. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen.
thank you, Rev Choi. To get the program started, we're going to have the Bethany Korean Culture and Language School come and start a performance, and then, to your left, or to my left, there's a dance team that's going to perform after as well. But after that, we have our keynote speaker, Mrs. Min Lee, who's going to share a talk. And so during that time, if you have any little ones that you want to just release or they would do better with the children's program, we have the children's program starting at that time as well. So we'll give you the cue, and the volunteers will help with the children's program. They're at the back, and so we'll direct you at that time. But for now, this is the Bethany Korean Culture and Language School that start the program off for us today with the performance.
Welcome to the adoption ceremony. We are here from the Bethany Korean Culture School. Bethany Korean Culture School is a very exciting, fun, and interesting place. Here, you can learn Korean and easily learn the Korean culture too. Today, we are here to tell you a little bit about the Korean culture. There are three main things to the Korean culture. There are hanbok, tan, and hangul. Hana, what are they wearing?
They're wearing hanbok.
What is hanbok?
Hanbok is a Korean traditional clothing. A long time ago, it was worn every day, but now people only wear it on special occasions. The hanbok is designed with bright colors and is a clothing that has been around Korea for a very long time. This part of the hanbok, the top part, is called the chobori. The chobori is the shirt or top part of the hanbok. The chobori is worn by both boys and girls, but the girls wear a skirt like that, and boys wear pants like that. The hanbok is traditionally worn on marriages and on the New Year's Day. Back then, if you owned a hanbok, you had a lot of money because they were very expensive. Everyday people wore simpler versions and they were less colorful. Only wealthy people had fancy clothing. Today, these people are especially here to show you the hanbok of brides and grooms on marriages.
Hana, what are these?
These are tal.
What is it?
Tal is a Korean traditional mask that was worn in plays or in festivals or to hide your identity like a spy. Tal is made by wood, dirt, or paper and other materials. A long time ago, servants couldn't express their master and make fun of his servants couldn't express their feelings toward their owners. So on a certain day, they were allowed to wear a mask of their master and make fun of his mistakes, and they would not get punished. It was a time for fun and entertainment. There are many types of tal. The tal on the right is called a kakshi tal, and the tal on the left is called a mos tal. Hey Eunice, how was hangul made?
Hunminjeongeum is a Korean script that taught people how to read and write Hangul the correct way. It was made because the king back then, King Sejong, felt bad for his people because they couldn't read and write their own language. Hangul used to have 28 letters in the alphabet, but now we only have 24. It has 14 consonants and 10 vowels. Hangul has been made a World Treasure number 70 by UNESCO in October 1997 because of how unique it is. It is one of the only languages ever made that was created by a king. In Bethany Korean Culture School, you can learn how to read, how to write, and learn our beautiful Korean culture. You are always welcome to Bethany Korean Culture School. We hope you enjoy yourselves during your time here. 오셔서 감사합니다. 감사합니다.
One for you. So, will you join with me in welcoming them warmly? huge and speak on topics such as family, marriage, relationships, communication, adoption, and abstinence education. And she enjoys many challenges, and her next challenge is to complete the 5K race. And so Min lives in Charlotte with her husband and their 4 children, ages 19, 16, 11, and 9. And so we're so glad she could join us here today. And so let's welcome our keynote speaker, Min Lee, at this time.
Good to see you all. You heard Pastor Joseph said my next challenge is running the 5K. And I know some of you are thinking, did he really say 5K? Like, I do that like every other weekend type of thing. But for me, that's a challenge because I don't run. I could walk with you for a long time, but I don't really run. So that's a challenge for me. And my son Caleb has already done 5K a few months ago, and he said when I'm ready, he's going to run with me. So we'll see about that. Well, running, and I love meeting challenges. I was never that person, but I've grown to be that person, to really face my challenges, face on, and just kind of break it down and work on it. And that's kind of how I gain my confidence in myself, to kind of prove to myself, yeah, I can do it. Yeah, it may seem a little hard or challenging at first, but I can do it. So those are one of the challenges that's one of the challenges that I've been working on. And you moms know already that working out and kind of self-care is like takes backseat once you have those little people in your house. They just kind of take over, and you get so busy caring and meeting their needs with school and other activities and learning and all kinds of wonderful things. I'm not complaining, but that does happen. It just tends to happen a lot. There's another challenge that I'm not ready to meet, which is I have a great fear of birds. I'm like deathly afraid of birds, especially chickens. I know that's weird, right? But I just don't want to, I can't even. The fact that I can say chicken with my mouth is a great improvement because I wasn't even able to look at or say those things. So one day, actually, let me tell you a story. I was invited to a friend's farm for a picnic, right? I really didn't want to go because I knew there were creatures running around and that I don't want to be nearby, but it's one of those things I could not back out, so I went. So I'm driving up their gravel driveway, and in the distance I see chickens and things over there, right? And my first instinct is to turn my car around and go home, but I couldn't do that. So I got out, I got my kids out, and I just placed myself really high up on the deck over there, far away from the chickens, and kind of turned my back like this. So I'm sitting on the edge of the seat like this because I was kind of getting nervous and anxious. But of course, later on, all these ladies think those chickens are really beautiful, and they just kind of carry them in their arms and kind of walking towards me, right? So I'm like, okay, I gotta get out of here because I'm gonna pass out or something. So I try to calm myself, but then I really had to get my kids and go, okay, this is my cue to leave. So I left. I just said, okay, I gotta go. I forgot to do something. I just see you later. They're probably wondering till this day why she left so, why she rushed out like that. Because I never told them. Because I didn't want to say I was afraid of chicken. So we all have something that we're kind of afraid of, or that kind of gives that fear of something, or maybe not fear, maybe uncomfortable, discomfort. If you think about something, it just kind of makes you I really don't want to go there, kind of thing. Because I have a therapist friend, and she said, man, you can't live your life like that. Those are little chickens, they're not going to hurt you. You have to expose yourself. Through everybody, she says, and kind of like get used to this. And I said, no, I don't want to get used to it. I'm okay. I'm gonna like live like this. You know, it doesn't bother me. I don't need to be familiarized with those ugly chickens. You know, I'll be okay. So I don't want to face that fear that I have. I know it's there, but I don't want to face it. So we all have something like that, I guess, right? You know? Yes. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. This is so much better. I'm kind of control freak, so I need to know what I'm doing. Oh. These are my kids, by the way, a few years ago. That's Caleb with the guitar and Elliot with the green. That's my youngest. He's sitting right there. So we face those fears. But some fears or anxieties or discomfort we don't want to face. And so I want to ask you today, what are some of your anxieties or discomforts or fears? Anybody? Yeah. Oh, like, yeah, small places, yeah. Anything else? Nobody? Height. Yeah, bugs, spiders, snakes. Clouds. Wow, that's as bad as chicken. Okay. Well, how about something like this? How about the fact that your family or our families may look different to other people? How about that? Like that kind of makes us, you know, just uncomfortable, maybe, a little bit. Or how about the fact that, you know, as much as we love our kids, they may come to you one day and say, Mom, John over there said you're not my real mom because I don't look like you. Or something like, you know, one day they come and say, like, I love you, Mom and Dad, but I really want to meet my birth parents. You know, it could be any one of those things. And, you know, I know as we're adopted parents, we think about those things a lot. But it doesn't mean that we're comfortable with it all the time. So I wanted to talk about today, I want to reframe those things. I'm a counselor, so I really love the idea of 3 R's. You know, reframe, retell, and restore. Those are really, I really believe in that. And this is a picture of a family, Robin and Paul Pennington. I don't know if you know them, but they are the founders of the orphan ministry. So this is their family, diverse family. And this is a picture of my friend Jennifer and her son Kirk Schmidt. And Kirk is 15 years old, and he's a wrestler. He's a state championship wrestler. So this picture actually was taken at his wrestling dinner, award dinner, right? So Jennifer puts this picture on her Facebook, and I said, what? He lets you kiss in public? Because I don't know about you, if you're around teenagers a lot, but at 15, your mom kissing you in public is a big deal, okay? So I have a almost 12-year-old, and you know, like I'm dropping him off at school, and I'm like, window down, and go, bye Caleb, have a good day, I love you. And he's like, okay, Mama. You know, and if I see him at church or anything like that, right? So if I like try to walk over to him, he's like, you know, that's a sign, don't come near me. So it's, yeah, you know, but Jennifer and I met at those mandatory pre-adoption parenting classes. So Jennifer was there for her second adoption, this is her first son, and I was there for my first adoption. And so we befriended each other, and we went out to dinner together, you know, her husband and my husband, the 4 of us. And she grabs me and she goes, Min, can I ask you something? She goes, do Korean people think that it's weird for white people to adopt Korean kids? That's what she asked me. This was like many years ago, like 11 years ago. And I was like, wow, you know, apparently her husband, Jennifer, and her husband, Phil, is very much about letting their sons know about their cultural background and ethnic background, and, you know, helping them develop that healthy identity. So they've been going to Korean churches or visiting Korean churches and going to Korean markets and stuff like that. And I guess, you know, people were like looking, kind of like we're talking in the background, and I said, girl, that's not because you adopted Korean kids, that's because you have 5 little ones around you. But you know, sometimes we do get those kind of looks. I'm Korean, my husband's Korean, our kids are Korean, they look Korean, right? But once people find out that we're an adopted family, and it's not too long before they find out, they always go like, you know, I get one of those, like, oh, you know, he's your mother? Kind of, you know, that kind of wink thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? So it's not because, you know, some of us have different appearance always, but it could be, you know, that just comes with the territory. And I think, oh, there's Steve Morrison, the founder of MPAC, and his mom. She's 90 years young and looking beautiful. Yeah. So Steve is the founder of MPAC. I don't know if you guys are familiar with MPAC. I'm the regional director of MPAC. We promote adoption heavily in Korea. And of course, we help Korean American families and non-Korean families with Korean children. I work closely with a lot of Korean families, and they really are afraid of telling their children or sharing with their children about their adoption history, because, you know, their sincere heart is to protect their kids from possibly experiencing the pain that's associated with adoption, such as rejection or identity crisis, stuff like that. But that's one of the main issues that I work with families on, is letting them know and raising awareness of adoption in the community so that they will have a healthy identity about adoption, healthy idea of adoption, like Pastor Choi prayed earlier, and that the children need to know who they are. And this video, I think you will enjoy, about how to maybe deal with these type of questions with some humor.
My wife and I have 3 kids, 2 biological and 1 adopted. And these are actual things that people have said to either us or adopted families that we know. Now, we have to assume that people aren't meaning to actually be mean. They just don't know what kind of language to use when they're talking to adopted families. So we came up with this rule of thumb. Before you say it, ask yourself this question. What am I saying about a boob job? If you wouldn't say it about a boob job, then don't say it about adopted families. Is this real? Is that your real daughter? Yep, she's real. She's not a unicorn. The word that you're looking for is not, is she your real daughter? It's, is she your biological daughter? Woo! Where'd you get those? Oh, where'd you get it from? As adorable as she is, my daughter actually isn't a trendy accessory that you just pick up at a boutique. The question you probably wanted to ask here is, where is your daughter from? Oh, did you pick those out yourself? Did you get to like pick the kid out that you wanted? No, we didn't actually go in and haggle with Miss Hannigan and try to find the cutest little singing redheaded orphan. That only happens in musicals. The question you probably wanted to ask here is, how does the adoption process actually work? Oh, did you get those because you couldn't have boobs of your own? This is a question you probably just want to avoid altogether, because adoption isn't always the result of infertility. And honestly, even if it was, it's none of your business. Do you mind if I touch those? Do you love your boobs even though they're not real? Weren't you worried that they weren't going to look right? Wow, how much those cost? Just don't. It's not right to stare. Unless it's at my body. Remember, if you wouldn't say it about a boob job, don't say it about an adopted family.
Did you like that? We could all relate to that, right? We've heard those before. Well, this is a picture of my family. It's a couple of years old, you know, because it's hard to get the 6 of us together to take a picture. But, you know, my husband is all the way in the back, and the kids in between us. My oldest is 19 years old. She's a freshman in college, and my youngest is 9. So we have 16, and Caleb in front of my husband. The handsome little guy is almost 12. Well, my husband and I have 4 kids, and we adopted our boys, and not at the same time. First Caleb, and then 2 years later, Elliot. It was a really, really difficult decision. I'm sure it's for every one of you. But for us, not only that we had to consider adoption, but we had to consider our families who are very traditional in their thinking regarding adoption. And they were sure that it wasn't going to work out. We're going to fail, and it's going to bring shame to our families. So it was really, really difficult. But, you know, of course, I couldn't let that happen because I felt like it was a calling as Christians to care for the orphans. It's clearly written in the Bible. So I wanted to answer that call, and I just felt like that was something that my husband and I needed to do. So we adopted Caleb in 2003. And then that's when we started working with MPAC, because I felt like, well, if I went through this much fear and unknown and confusion, surely there are other families who need some guidance and comfort and encouragement, those type of things. Both of our boys were adopted through Waiting Children program. You know what they are, right? So we do experience some sort of, you know, physical difficulties and mostly learning disabilities these days. But, you know, we work through those things. My family immigrated to New York in 1980 when I was 13 years old. And I grew up in an immigrant family. So I know what it means to be confused between the 2 very different cultural, you know, atmospheres. Because at home, my parents were very strict. And I was only allowed to speak Korean, and I had to do everything the Korean way, you know, like, you know, I had to like bow every time I see a grown up. You know, I couldn't start eating until everybody was sat down, especially my father at the head of the table. You know, those type of things. So, you know, which was fine because I grew up singing those songs that those children were singing in the beginning. In Korea, you know, so I knew that. That was okay with me. But the problem was, outside of our home, I was expected to be different, because if I was like all that Korean, my friends and teachers and, you know, being shy little Asian girl, you know, in the corner, not making any trouble, but not doing anything else either, wasn't really gonna fly with American society. So I was just kind of like here and there everywhere. I didn't know where I fit, and it was kind of very awful for me. So my teenager years were kind of very difficult. So my self-esteem was pretty low because I felt inadequate in both places, because I wasn't really Korean enough for my parents, because they were like, oh, you know, that's not the way. They will point out to me, but everywhere else, they were like, oh, you know, grow up with two very different ideas. And so I have a very great compassion and empathy for children growing up in bicultural or multicultural families. But you know what? The study shows again and again and again, children who grow up in multicultural families are far more successful when they have nurturing and understanding parents who support that part of the children and who are aware of the need of ethnic identity. So once they have parents who understand those needs and that it's just necessary to develop that healthy ethnic identity, they do far greater, they're more successful. Because, doesn't it make sense, they are already at a young age exposed to diversity, respect for others, loving your neighbors, treating others the way you want to be treated. They are able to think in a flexible way. Their mind is flexible. Their perspective is wider, right? Their world view is greater. So, I mean, what else would you expect from children who grow up in that environment? Makes sense. And those are my boys, and I shared last time I was here, but my boys are both championship soccer players, and I'm a soccer mom. So, you know, I don't understand soccer. I just kind of sit there and go, woo! So they love it because I don't know anything, and I just cheer for them. But my husband knows everything. So he says, and whatever move they're making, he's like, no, you know, no, Elliot, no. I don't know what he's saying, but he's just yelling a lot. So, you know, but they do well. You know, I think it's okay. My son Elliot thinks he's gonna be playing for the Premier League, the Manchester United. So one day, maybe. So. Is it the video? Okay. I wanted to show you this video that I documented when I was in Korea, picking up my son Elliot. That was 2005. When I went to Korea to pick up my son, MPIC Korea had this great idea of documenting me picking up my son. And it was going to be beautiful and emotional and just awesome, right? So we could use it for these conferences and stuff like that. But when I had to pick him up, I was like, oh, okay, Elliot, hi, let's go. It was I felt kind of like he was with the babysitter and I was just kind of there to pick him up and, you know, let's go home type of thing. But we ran into the Webbers. Chris and Leah Weber from New Jersey. They were there to pick up their first son. And here's the video. Well, I guess we'll watch the whole thing. It's okay. This is Holt, Korea.
He's more handsome than I ever imagined.
You're mesmerized by your What brought you to adopt a Korean baby?
A lot of intellectual reasons. Because they are loved so well in foster care with the other foster cares, the foster families, because this is our first baby, and we wanted the opportunity to be able to be parents to a little baby, and also because we prayed about it and we just knew our first day.
Hey, you got this up? I'm so jealous.
Sorry.
My son is 9 months old.
Oh.
And my other son was 9 months. No, I'm really sorry. You're so special.
And just the fact that they have a baby, my son.
I love
He's perfect.
So you haven't met your baby yet?
No,
Today? These are the waivers.
Baby boy.
How old is your son?
He's about 5.5 months old now. He should be 24 weeks.
4 weeks. So what brought you to adoption?
We tried getting pregnant and we weren't able to, and instead of going through in vitro and going through all the hormones, I sort of figured I was adopted and I came out really well, and so we'd like to do the same.
Yeah. We actually talked about it on our first date.
Yes.
Really? First date?
Yeah. We put everything on.
Very romantic.
Yeah. We put everything on the table.
Well, you met my family, and my family obviously was white.
Yeah. So adoption came up as a topic. So, yeah, and it was something that I was always, wanting to do anyway. So yeah, it was just an easy transfer.
I was adopted when I was 13 months old, and to the Sanders family, and they had 3 boys, and my mom was not going to try for another one, she wanted a girl. And they were actually trying to get an American baby, but it was very hard and very expensive. And then they were told that they could have, a whole bunch of African American babies, and they thought that during that time, in the early 70s, that wouldn't, they were kind of have problems with it. So then their next step was to adopt Korean or an Asian baby, so they chose Korea. And then I had come over December 21st of 1971, and it was very, I always knew that I was adopted. I never had any questions about it. When I got a little bit older, than when I was about 13, my mom let me go through the paperwork and do that. And, but it's been one of those, you feel very special. They're coming full circle, they're coming back here, and I have never been back, so it's really nice to come back. Yeah. And then to meet my baby and bring him home and bring my husband. And it's really fabulous, so very, very excited.
It's great.
Adoption's great.
Yeah, everyone should adopt.
Look at it.
Oh my God. That's going to be another.
mothers who can't raise their children, and it brings hope to families who can't have children. And then we have a beautiful baby boy because of adoption.
Okay, so it's pretty touching, right? It's beautiful. This is them. The boy in the blue, that's Cameron, that's the baby that you saw in the video, and Jack is in red. A few months, or actually, I guess about a year later, they got a call from Holt, Korea. Said, well, Cameron's birth mother had another baby. Would you be willing to adopt him? So they say yes, and there's Jack. So the brothers are together, and they're just happy and thriving. And you know what, Leah, mom, she was adopted, she said, when she was 13 months old, and she said it was special. You know, and that's the idea that we want our children to have. You know, of course, we acknowledge the fact that there was less ideal situation. We all know that. But we make a decision to focus on the good of adoption, the beautiful part of adoption. You know, the fact that you're here tonight, out of your busy schedule, the fact that you're making an effort to be with your children, let them experience this whole Korean cultural, you know, event, and being surrounded by other adopted families and other children, it tells them really clearly and loud that it's important to you, mom and dad. It's important to your family. But not only that, that they are who they are, their being is important to you guys. So it speaks louder than anything else. And these are little building blocks that you build together as a family to build that trust, to build the relationship, so that you can retell the story. Remember, reframe, retell, restore. You're retelling the story. You're building one by one. And I do a lot of workshops with parents with teenagers, and most of them wonder, I don't know what happened. My kid was perfect, but all of a sudden he's rebellious, defiant, and he's just not there as a different kid. And a lot of times it's because there were no building blocks on the way. They didn't build that trusting relationship by letting the kids know that they're important to the parents. They're important. Their being is important. I think when Caleb was in preschool, and I mentioned that he has reading difficulties, so he has IEP. So during the process of assessing him, the school psychologist did IQ tests and all kinds of testing. And I get a call from the school psychologist one day, and I still remember it was like a rainy day and dreary day, and I wasn't feeling really good about myself, and just kind of driving to the gym or something like that. And she called me and said, Mrs. Ha, that's my married name. I was testing Caleb. I brought him into my office, and we sat across the table, and there were a lot of stuff on my desk, and there were files. And so Caleb goes, "What's that?" Right? He was like 3 or 4. And so the psychologist said to Caleb, "Well, those are my files. They're really important, right?" So then Caleb just kind of looked up at her and said, "Important? Like me? Important?" So she was in tears, calling me and telling me that I'm doing a good job as a parent and stuff like that. And it came at the right time because I was feeling pretty lousy that day about my parenting skills. Because probably because I sent them off to school, yelling, "Hurry up! Finish your breakfast! Hurry up, get the car, you know, the usual routines. But more than those little yelling and, you know, those type of things, you respecting and being interested and following up with their developmental stage of their need is far more important. There's a psychologist named Erik Erikson, I don't know if you know him. He's the one who coined the term identity crisis. Now I think it's really interesting, I know on the sidebar here. He grew up in a single mother family, right? And his mother remarried, and his stepfather adopted him. But he was, he grew up in Germany and moved to America later in his life. But he grew up as a Jew, right? So he went to like synagogue on Saturdays, like how they kind of, I don't know what they call it, like temple, to teach, not Bible, but you know, the Bible and all the ways of Jewish tradition and stuff. But at school, he was surrounded by tall, blonde, blue eyes, you know, that type of thing. So he was always kind of confused of where he belonged. So he was like, you know, probably pretty confused like me. But he actually, later on in his life, in his career, is a person who studied and developed identity crisis, psychosocial developmental stages. So it's very, very interesting how our weaknesses or our area of wound become our strength. So, you know, take courage. Let's see what's here. Okay. So a few days ago, actually, or last week, I get this homework assignment for my son Caleb, who's in 5th grade. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it says acquired and inherited traits. So the questions are, you know, talk to your mom, somebody from your mom's side and somebody from your dad's side, and ask these questions to see if these are inherited or acquired traits. How about your earlobe? Is it attached or detached? Can you roll your tongue? How about hairline? Is it straight or peaked? You know, this type. How do you answer this type of assignment? What would you say? What would you do? Any suggestions? Remember, 5th grade, yes? Huh? Oh, not applicable. Okay, that's one way to do it. Anybody else? Any suggestions? Do it. How do you do it? How do you answer it? Okay, yeah. Okay. Okay, anyone else? Okay, so you would explain the biological side of it and then explain the connection that you have with your son. Very good. Yeah. Remember, this is not kindergarten, 5th grade, so they're studying genetics. Okay, so it's important for them to understand this, that there are traits that's passed down biologically. So yeah, that's kind of exactly what the direction that I took with my son. And I asked him, so Caleb, whose, you know, biological traits would you inherit? And he was like, I don't know. Right? So I was like, you don't know? Do you understand what that means? And he's like, yeah. So you know, I found out that he doesn't really want to say it. He knew it, but he didn't want to say it. So but that's okay. So I said, okay, so are you saying birth mother and birth father? You know, and he's like, yeah. So he knew what I was talking about. So, you know, we said, okay, so, you know, yeah, Leah said her mom opened up her adoption files when she was 13. I thought that was pretty wise for her, because when my son's almost 12 and I see that coming, right? I think he's getting ready to kind of understand that. So I told him about how tall his birth mother is, because it was on the documents. I don't know if you guys have that. How, you know, she had really beautiful eyes because it says so on the paper. And I told my son that his birth father's last name was such because it said on the paper, and then what he did for a living because it said on the paper. And that was the extent of my sharing about his birth family with him at this age. But he listened very carefully. He was very interested. So I thought that was kind of a cue for me to get ready to share, you know, a little bit more. Because I mean, you know, we have to do it age appropriately. We don't want to share everything with the 3-year-old. Let's see. So before I end, I want to thank Bethany Church, because this is their 11th year, and this is my first time attending. But I know there's a lot of people and effort and time and energy and, you know, thinking and planning goes into this. And I just want to thank you for doing and reaching out to the adoption community and acknowledging that there's a need for our children to be connected with one another and with the Korean ethnic background. So I want to thank you before I forget. And I want to encourage you all for doing such a great job of being adoptive parents. And I just, you know, pat myself on the back too for trying my best. I don't know everything. I make a lot of mistakes. You know, I fail a lot. I make, you know, sometimes I just like, oh, why did I do that? But regardless, we try our best. And that's why we gather at places like this, to learn from each other and connect with one another. So, and I thought this was pretty appropriate for us to be encouraged and encourage one another. So, have a great time, and thank you for letting me speak in front of you. And God bless you. Thank you.
Well, Min drove a long way, so I'm not going to let her sit down too quick. Just in case, if any of you guys have any questions at this point that you want to address Min, or just a comment that you want to make, I think this would be an appropriate time to do so. And for some of you who need a break from your children today, it'll just buy you extra 5-10 minutes, so that's not a bad thing, I think, right? So, you know, we're all parents, we understand each other. So I'll give the mic back to Min if you guys have any questions that you want to ask. Why don't we do that for about 5-10 minutes? Yeah.
I hope I have the answers. Yes, Karen.
I had a question. How was your son's assignment received by the teacher?
I didn't get any feedback yet. This was very recent, but I'll let you know. I actually emailed his teacher to kind of see how much his understanding is supposed to be, like academically. So I'll let you know. Anyone else? Questions, comments?
Thank you. I'm Karen Lim, and the director of Impact Georgia, which is a new chapter. We're in our first year. And thanks to Bethany, Presbyterian Church here, we're so thankful for their support, because without them, there wouldn't be an Impact Georgia. But last year, Steve Morrison, the founder of Impact, spoke at this event, and he and Pastor Choi talked about starting Impact Georgia, and that's how the ball got rolling. And we had our first meeting back in November, and here at Bethany, and then earlier this year, Bethany hosted a wonderful Lunar New Year celebration. I think I see a lot of faces that were here. And then we just had an Easter egg hunt, and we're excited to be here tonight at their annual adoption celebration. We hope to have another event later in the year, maybe after summer travels kind of die down and people are back into their routines. But I'm Karen, and we're just really thankful to have this chapter and this opportunity for families to get to know each other and build relationships, especially among the children. To have those connections we think is very important, and we just hope to see it continue to grow and those relationships to thrive. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to come up to me or email me or call me, whatever. I'm here to help. So thank you. And we're so thankful for Bethany. They do such a wonderful job, and we're very grateful for the support.
So just in case if you haven't had the chance, on your way in, there was a table set up just near the door there. And if you guys can just fill out your name and your contact, email address, and cell phone, I promise I won't sell it to any businesses for profit. It's just to inform you guys of the things that are happening and keep you in the loop. And so whether you come or not come to it, I think if you at least are informed about it, then you can decide to do so. And so once again, thanks everybody for coming. After this, we're gonna just go into dinner. And so why don't I pray for us, and